Welcome to episode 28 of our board game podcast, a master's degree in rolling terribly. I'm your host, Eddie. Joining me as my co-host, a man who's really made this whole experience super enjoyable and gives me a lot of excitement to get together and play again every Monday. Gaz, say hi, Gaz.
Ah, that's nice. Why did it seem like you were reading that and it was really scripted? The rest of them seemed to come from the heart, but that one didn't.
I was going to joke and put 1274. No, just joking. But I was like, no, I should probably do this one with a bit more, what do you call it, conviction or love or something like that.
Well, you already made that joke and disappointed me. So
I
can't do
know,
it again.
I know. But I guess it was just, it's been a enjoyable week. And I don't know. I was talking to Mark about it earlier and he was like, I'm really looking forward to getting together on Monday and playing again. I'm like, yeah, no, it's been really, really good. And it hasn't reached the stage where, you know, it feels like a chore, or it feels like, oh God, you know, we got to do this again.
Yeah,
It's
100%. The thing that I love is that most of the time, for most of my life, when you get to Sunday Arvo, Sunday evening, you're like, ugh, it's the week, it's the end of the weekend. But the thing I always remember on Sunday is that we play Frosthaven on Mondays.
yeah.
So it just makes Sundays fine because I'm like, like the really cool things happening. And
Oh,
then
sorry to
and
cut you
then
off. Give me 1 second. My camera just decided to slide, and I've got it all recorded of me trying to catch it because it's on a tripod. And yeah, I just ruined that moment. Sorry.
all right. I feel like this is part of your intro. This
Nope.
is you trolling me.
Nope. All right, sorry about that. Slight camera malfunction, but yeah, no, carry on.
Sunday's good because Monday's Frosthaven.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah, it's the start of the
longer
week, which is usually the crap time of the week, but it's something fun to look forward to.
and it kind of gets you through. If I had a cool activity to get me through Tuesday, then we'd be set because then basically it would be Wednesday before I knew it, and that's pretty much the end of the week.
So why are we not playing it every day?
Life choices.
Yeah, okay. So on today's episode, we're going to have a little chat about the response to the actual amDirt Raw segment. We're going to run through our scenario for the week, which is scenario 69, Sacred Soil, as well as any community thoughts that go along with that.
We should have named the episode Bill and Ted's.
Why?
See,
Excellent Adventure, Bogus Journey?
I'm being cryptic. Pardon?
Excellent Adventure or Bogus Journey?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think it's both of them, but it's probably Excellent Adventure.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Bogus Journey is Excellent Adventure is the time machine one, yeah. Bogus Journey is the Grim Reaper
robots. The robots one.
one. Yeah, the robots.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I can't remember which one's which, but
Yeah, I think
whoa.
the Excellent Adventure is that. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. amDirt Mail. This is making a comeback. I got a really nice email that I want to share. And variants and house rules is going to make a slight comeback.
Yes. It's my favorite controversial topic.
So, amDirt Raw, which kind of, was a bonus segment that we decided to do last week. I've kind of crunched the numbers since we launched it, and 75% of our listeners of our regular episode are listening to amDirt Raw, which is a really big amount, way more than I expected. I was expecting somewhere in the vicinity of 5 to 10%, just due to the fact that, it's kind of uncut and uncharted. So, like, we talk about the scenario, the road event and the outpost event, but we're also not hiding away from maybe talking about another one that happened a while back just to make comparisons. And it's kind of like, no holds barred. We can talk about other things. And like, it's really easy for me to put together because I don't have to edit that much and worry about bleeping things and all that. So yeah, it's been actually a really nice result, actually. And it just says a lot about maybe a lot of the people. They actually don't mind listening to that, or they're just really far in, or they've finished.
That's what I was thinking. It's just people either don't care about spoilers anywhere near as much as we think they do, or people are like, I can't believe you guys are only like 30 scenarios in. Like, we finished ages ago.
I think a big part of it, and this could just be us, because you and I, there are times that we don't, like days later, we have to really try and our hardest to remember what the event was for the week. So if people are listening to the event and they're like listening to us go into detail for it, and then they're not going to get that event until months later, they're probably not even going to remember it anyway,
Yeah, that's true.
or
I mean,
or what we chose.
when we recorded our raw episode, because we're going to try and record them after we do the scenario straight after. And you brought up the fruit event, and I couldn't remember it, and it was only like 2 hours earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah. If I'm forgetting it at that point, then yeah, you're right. Like, who's going to remember it later on?
Yeah, exactly. No one's like going to factor any of that in.
Hmm.
So let's jump straight into scenario 69. Now, this was, if anyone's got this or done this, they know it's part of a PQ, and it's actually Mark's PQ on our Boneshaper. So it had a earlier thing that he had to accomplish. I think it was something to do with looting, and now it's unlocked scenario 69, which we've actually had for a couple of weeks, where Mark actually said, oh, by the way, I've completed that bit. What do I do now? And then it turns out we unlocked this scenario, and we're trying to kind of plan for his retirement. So we want to also look, there's the scenario flow chart, which does show what scenario leads to what, gives a sort of indication that there's another one after this. So
Yep.
it's kind of like, oh, is it going to be time gated? Is it not going to be time gated? Spoiler alert, it's time gated. And yeah, we decided to get this out of the way just so that he has a little bit more control over when he wants to retire. And being
Yeah.
level 9 now, I mean, how many level 9 scenarios do you really want to play before you want to try something different, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny because it sounds like Grandpa Mark. We're planning his retirement, right? Like he's coming up to retirement age. We're gonna get him a new house and build him a bungalow out the back or something like that. We can start to get him a membership at the local bingo club. Get it all ready.
Well, do you remember leading up to it? It was like, let's do his 69 scenario. And he kept saying, no, don't worry about it. No, don't worry about it. I'm
Yeah,
planning. It's like that, right?
yeah.
Come on, old
Like,
man. It's time to go.
come on. Like, yeah, you kind of past retirement age. It's like I can still play as much as you young whippersnippers.
Yeah. You're pushing it. So, yeah, we head on to scenario 69, Sacred Soil. We had a road event. We're going to do this traditional vague way. Now, I'm going to categorize
I don't
this.
remember it. I didn't remember it 2 hours after the scenario. I don't remember it now.
Well, the vague way is going to be, it's another one of those scenarios, and I think I have no problem saying this. There are some scenarios that you're put up with a conundrum of some kind, and your response is either to deal with it, reason with it, or fight it. And we had one that gave us that option. We had to choose whether to reason with something or fight something.
Oh, okay. So the reason I didn't remember this is because we talked about it in length in the Raw episode, which made me think that that was not the scenario because we don't usually do that.
Yeah.
So yes, no, I remember now.
Yeah. And like I remember talking about, we like the game's obviously every time, it wants you to fight something. Fighting something is usually going to result in something bad because you're going to get injured or something like that. So I really wanted to do that, but the vote was against me. And this was also an interesting event because it was the first time keywords came into play, but multiple keywords. And this was the first time we came across a situation where we weren't sure what to do because there were multiple keywords on different lines.
Yep.
And I think we looked it up, and it was like you read from top to bottom, and whichever the first one you kind of meet is the one you resolve. Which made sense.
Yeah, it was like an if-or statement, right? Like if you didn't qualify for the first lot, then you'd go to the next lot. So
yeah,
it was with that, again being super vague. It was interesting, and I still feel the same about these type of events, though, in that you can't gauge not what you should be doing, because if there was an obvious answer, it's not really a choice. But figuring out how you can make a choice, that's the thing. And if it's like talk to someone or fight them, I mean, again, that's kind of you got to know where you're going. That's the thing. I feel like I compare it to, say, something like Baldur's Gate, right? Which is maybe topical because Baldur's Gate 3 is coming out. But I remember playing those games, and you could be evil and kill everyone and steal everything, or you can talk to everyone and help everyone. But at least you knew what path you were taking, and there was a reason for it. This doesn't have that, right? Because you could fight everyone, but it's not really ultimately going to end up in, cool, you get heaps of loot, but then you go evil, because that's not how the game works. It's not tracking your alignment.
Yeah.
So the fight or talk type scenario becomes a bit arbitrary in a sense, because you're just like, well, I don't know which is going to be better.
Yeah. I'm wondering whether or not, like, because it's I think something that maybe appeared in Gloomhaven a couple of times, and it's a very traditional style
Mm.
of one with just maybe a different thematic area that you're dealing with it. And like you said, there's no. I mean, in Gloomhaven, at least you had that reputation line where it was kind of like
Yeah.
your good things go up and the bad things go down. Now we only have morale. I think that really is impacting it. And of course,
Mm.
I mean, the people back home don't really know what happens on the road, right? So there's no
No, well,
real.
apparently they do, because they know what happens at secret meetings.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
because we lost morale because we had yeah, but yeah, you're right. And again, I got to remember. I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You can't make all the road events
Yeah.
like
Varies.
really, yeah, like super cryptic and interesting, because you do need some of the, and I won't say boring, but you need more run of the mill. You encounter something and now you got to make a decision, right? And
Mm.
then interesting things happen from that. But in saying that, like you mentioned, the back end of how this was actually resolved on the card was interesting. I thought
Mm.
that was really good. And
Well,
it was a
it
really
actually got
cool
us
way of
talking
doing
about
it.
it a fair bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
All right. So something else I want to add just before we start talking about the actual
sounds
scenario.
spicy.
No, I don't know, but it's the first time it's actually happened. So we had something that resulted in our outpost phase that involved injury and a status effect,
Ah, yes.
and it happened to us, at the start of your next scenario. All characters suffer this, etc. And we were wondering whether or not it happens on someone who retires in the same outpost phase, because Phil actually retired. That was last week. And he created the new character, he created the media. And as we're setting it up, we're all, oh, remember, guys, we take 2 damage at the start and we start with wound. Does Phil? And I was like, well, the outpost event happens the actual event itself happens in phase 2 of the outpost phase. And you create a character in phase 4. So the Deathwalker, which retired, would have had the actual, like, wound and everything, but then left. So due to whatever happened in that. And then it's not like the new character popped up later and was like, oh, by the way, no, you're hurt, buddy. You're hurt and bleeding for no. Oh shit, sorry. Like, he's got like 9 health to start off with, so it took him down to 7. So we were talking about that at the start, and it was kind of like, is there a timing thing here, or
It's Yeah, it's really funny that because I remember that conversation, and I don't know if you saw in the Frosthaven Discord the other day, but it came up. People were talking about it,
did
like
they?
exactly that situation.
What do
Yeah,
they
somebody
do?
asked. I think the general consensus was thematically it makes sense that you wouldn't have it, but by the rules, because
Yeah, okay.
it's not your character is inflicted with this thing, and when you go into your next scenario, this will be the cause. It just says at the start of the scenario, all characters.
Yeah.
So from a rules as written perspective, I think it's just supposed to be the players, right? Have an infliction when they move forward. That's the purpose of it.
Yeah, okay. Well, that is what we did. We
Yeah.
we wanted to play it safe and do 2 damage to him and start him off with wound.
Yeah.
And like he
Well, the way that it came about was because we disemboweled ourselves. So we probably met this new guy who wanted to join the club, and we're like, hey, before you can be part of this club, you got to disembowel yourself. So yeah, he was going to take the wounds anyway, all right? Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to come along with
he's
us.
not in the cool clan, no.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Where's your scar, bro?
So, scenario 69, then we're all slightly injured. Scenario goal is complete when 3 soil samples have been looted. At the end of that round, we read a thing. Fairly clean. Special rules, just briefly. We have no allies, so that's a nice change.
Yeah.
When an earth demon dies, it actually drops some of this sacred soil. It drops it as like a special loot chest thing that you would loot with normal means, a soil sample. And then there are tokens on the board, letter tokens that represent, because you're in a forest, I think, of some kind of thing like that, transitioning into a different part of the forest or the location that we're at. And you can't, so A goes to C, which then on the next tile, there'll be C tiles and I think it's E or something like that. And it goes from E to F and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the special rules. Oh, also, you end your turn on a space of one of these letters to transition from one space to another. At the start of your next turn, you have to discard 2 cards.
Yeah.
which is
Yeah, so
interesting.
to kind of paint a picture for people who haven't done this scenario, it's a room, and then attached to it are two other corridors, but they're not actually doors like traditional. So they're the little letter tokens, and when you move there, you kind of teleport into the next room. But the rooms never become connected. So it again, it changes that idea that you can kind of move forward, open a door, and then kind of delay and wait for things to move in and out because you're either in one room or you're in the next, and there's no targeting in between.
No.
So it was a cool different way of doing that.
How do you
Because
thinking about it?
we've had a
Yeah.
couple of scenarios that have sucked us into the room. So open the door, you just get pushed forward. So again, you can't do that kind of thing. And again, this is another way of reducing the amount that you can just delay the monsters.
Yeah. Well, one of the key things also is part of the rules is all tokens and pets and shadows and everything within range 2 of where you are can travel with you.
Mm,
So timing when you go is also really important, especially if you're a Boneshaper,
Boneshaper. Yeah.
Deathwalker, something like that.
Well, we found that was one of the challenges that Mark had coming from the first room is that he found himself kind of near the back of the room when we were going to transition through, and because at that point, again, because the monsters in the next zone, right, they don't count for your minions because it's not a path,
No,
so
there's
they
no
don't go anywhere.
focus.
They just
Yeah.
chill. So he had to move there and then use the new rules, which allowed them when they activate to move towards you, so he could get them within two, so
It's a,
he could jump in. So it's like a little bit of gymnastics. You had to give him a free move as well that
it's
helped that. You
yeah.
got because they're going to go before his turn, right at the start of the initiative. Then you moved him, and then they moved closer, and then he moved. Oh, it's just a whole bunch of like one of those little puzzle games.
It's really hard timing for him to try and plan
Mm.
all that. Yeah, because of the
And
just focus
because you lose
rules.
two cards when you go through, because you discard two cards,
Yeah.
it's even worse if you have to spend an extra turn just moving.
Yeah.
Because you don't move in, teleport in, and then just do the rest of your turn,
No.
right? It's you're appearing at the start of the turn, but you have to discard cards to do it. So
Yeah.
if you take two turns to get everything through, then you discard it's like six cards just to move between rooms.
It's a very interesting way to make you plan exactly when you're going to do this, but as a group as well, because if you kind of go in one by one, there's potential, kind of problems and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So that were the special rules. What were your like any other thoughts on the scenario setup? Although you kind of just ran through all that anyway, right?
Yeah,
Just
no, I
the
loved it.
original
I thought it
room.
was really cool. Yeah, it was different enough. It kind of gave the feel for a dungeon from like the Gloomhaven style. Gloomhaven style. Move through, kill things. Move through, kill things.
Yeah.
But it didn't have that. Like it had that extra piece to it. So yeah, from how the scenario was set up and we navigated, I thought it was really cool.
So we had Forest Sims, which we haven't seen yet. Now they, I believe, are in Gloomhaven.
Yeah, they are in Gloomhaven. I reckon they've got a different deck though, because now everything uses the Imp deck,
I
right?
believe so. I don't know if
Yeah.
they had a separate deck in Gloomhaven.
Oh yeah, maybe they had the same one. I don't know,
Yeah, okay.
but they
Um,
they did a similar thing than what they used to do in Gloomhaven, which was sit there, hit two targets, and throw heaps of curses out.
which they did.
Yes, they
Um,
definitely did.
a
We had
lot of
lots of
that,
curses.
which was
Yeah.
kind of crap. But we also saw Rending Drakes. I believe they're also from Gloomhaven.
Yep.
It's so interesting
Yep.
because you guys, in particular, you and Mark were both like, "Is that a Rending Drake?" Oh, and I'm like, "Why? What's that?" Like, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
saw the bleed, and it's like, "Oh, just high damage, lots of bleed," and I'm like, "Oh." And that was at that moment when we were setting it up and working at the scenario that I was like, I might bring lots of heal cards and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
It's the rending drakes as well. Aren't It's not the wound isn't that bad, right? Like I just remember them from hitting really hard and
Yeah.
having situations where we got pretty lucky in that most of the times when they were doing their really nasty ones, like I'm pretty sure they have one. They drew it at the end where they've got an attack three attacks. Like they hit, and they hit,
Yeah. Okay.
right? And they're hitting for like four. Like so it's not a low number.
Okay.
So they can really, really wreck you. So I remember that from Gloomhaven running around in some scenarios where there was a few of them
Yeah.
and just having these ones pounce and just be like, oh wow, there is so much damage coming out of this like two or three mobs. So
It's fair. I mean, at the very start, we kind of focused them down because
yeah.
we needed to kill the Earth Demon. There's only one. And then you got all the imps flying around. So it was kind of like, I'm almost certain like someone made a call that now we go to deal with those first. And that's kind of the position we all kind of went in to try and shut those down. Now, we had a brand new class with us, and it was very exciting to see kind of how that was going to play out. And at the very start, we got not like heaps around at preps, but we got, can you please move? And turns out Media needs a lot of space.
And he wants to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wants to be everywhere. So he kind of forced Gaz and I to move out of the way because apparently we were in the way. But then, he got started and blowing up obstacles. There's a giant 3-tile tree in there, blowing up obstacles and pushing and doing damage and all that. It was pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, well, I think the conversation was like, oh, he was looking through his cards, and after like 2 rounds, he's like, I'm a frontliner. And I was like, I don't know, I'm looking at your health and your lack of shields. I don't believe that's true. He's like, but a lot of my cards, like a melee and all targets and stuff, I'm like, yeah, you need to go in after us.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going first.
Keyword being frontliner versus I like to be in melee range when I do my damage.
Correct. Yeah, they're very different things. Yeah.
No, but yeah, that was something that he did. So yeah, no, it was really cool to see him throwing fire and brimstone, all that kind of stuff around, which was really cool, blowing up the obstacles. Mark was really trying to collect all the curses. So Mark is a new card as well, actually. Let's talk about that. He's got the Bone Horde, which he was very excited for. I believe it's a level 8 card that he finally got to use this time. And it's a card that when skeletons enter the hex of the Bone Horde, he gets to absorb it into the Bone Horde and place a token on it, which increases its damage. And when the Bone Horde, I think it's called a Zombie Horde, whatever, when it takes damage, he can choose to remove a token. I think you can have a max of 5 tokens. So this thing hits like a truck when it's fully maxed out, but he can remove a token to negate the damage, which was really cool. And he was very excited to get this out and start hitting stuff with it.
Yeah, well, I think, he did manage to negate like a 10, 12 crit or something like that, which is, it's cool because one of the problems with the summon type classes, when you have a big summon, especially if it's a lost card, is that you can get really screwed by RNG, right? Because you might have a big tanky thing out that you invest all your, that's your big card. It's running around wrecking things, and it just takes something hitting for 4 or 5 to crit, and suddenly, wow, bad luck. Like, what are you going to do now? So, yeah, having that ability to pull off a token and just say, no, I'm not taking that damage is cool. And he's got the ability to keep fueling it, right? Like, just put out more skeletons, which was his plan anyway. So he didn't really have to deviate. He just it's like he got the final puzzle piece of his skeleton army.
Yeah.
And it worked really well. Wow. It almost didn't because I think it'll be interesting to see how he reviews it and what he does next week. But I think he might have sent it out a bit too far, a little bit too early.
There were times that I had to save it.
Yeah.
With some warding and all that kind of stuff. He was healing the crap out of it as well. Yeah. And trying to keep this thing up. Because, if this thing drops, like, it's only got 7 health. So, it's great that he can negate it as well. But he wants to stack 5 tokens on it so he can just hit things like a truck. It's just, because it's a frontliner, it's just going to be absorbing a lot. And his deck was just, I think he copped 7 curses or something early. We emptied the curse deck because it was one of the first things that the imps did. And we just it's funny because he actually had all the curses and he only drew like 1 for the whole scenario or something like that.
Whereas I had 2 and I kept cycling them. I kept drawing both of them and then getting hit by another thing and getting them back in and drawing them again. So, but we all know how good I am at shuffling my misses and curses to the top.
Yeah.
And just one last thing on the Bone Horde, I'm really looking forward to the next scenario, and if it's a bit more linear in regards to, because this one where we spawned, there was a big tree in the middle of the first room, and me and Mark were kind of on opposite sides. We kind of went different ways. I'm really looking forward to being in the front line with the Bone Horde and kind of tanking for it so that it can just kind of keep building up and just start whacking. Because I think between me trying to take those hits, it just is dishing out damage, and then Phil kind of throwing out some difficult terrain, I reckon we're really going to be able to kind of control where things are and hit it. And that hopefully leaves you free to be able to just kind of control where everything is. Like, you can punt things away that we don't want to fight, making use of Phil's difficult terrain. Like, I reckon we might have like a cool little combo going here. Very different than like traditional kind of party around tank damage, range damage, stuff like that. But I reckon it could work really well now that like most of his power is funneled through kind of one unit.
Yeah.
Which is very different to how he was playing with lots of skeletons where he needed to kind of hoard them around, and everything was just can get in the way a little bit.
Yeah, I guess there's something about when you see a skeleton with 3 health, take a 12 damage crit, and he just loses the skeleton. It's like, it's nice that way, but I mean, yeah, he can still do that with the 1 token, which is pretty cool. It just, I guess, would feel different in that he's like getting slightly weaker every time it happens, but then he feeds it again.
Yeah,
so it's just a different.
Well, that's what I mean.
Way of
If I
doing
can
it.
tank for it, you won't have to worry about that, and it's kind of just a failsafe for in case it does get hit big. It's just like it can mitigate that 1 RNG piece. So
I want to talk a little bit about Phil and myself and hazardous terrain and having this awesome combo. The majority of the monsters in this scenario are flying. And I was really pissed. So, because the first room has like something like 6 imps, 6 forest imps, 1 earth demon, and 2 of the lurkers, right? Once the lurkers were dead because they were priority number 1, I was actually like, what do I do? And I brought my cat out, my fox, sorry. I brought my fox out to help out. And, you know, there was this whole, I was talking to Phil and it's like, oh, you and I really need to communicate how we're going to do with this, the difficult terrain and pushing and pulling and all that. Actually didn't really matter too much because no matter how much setup we were going to have, these things weren't going to really get impacted by it. And it was actually kind of annoying. It was kind of tilting having 2 people that relied on things being on the ground. And more
I feel like Phil's difficult terrain was the most inconvenient for us when he put his volcano explodey thing in the middle of the second room, and we had to figure out a way where we were going to get over it without taking damage.
That's what I was going to say about the next room. It ended up becoming like more of a hindrance for us, especially for Mark as well, because he was asking us, and I've got a car that can move them, but it was really hard to move them because I couldn't move them out of the way. I could only move them into another section that was still going to block us. So, yeah, interesting. It was
definitely interesting.
very
Well, look,
tight.
I think with some more open terrain and creatures that have legs on the ground, then you guys might be able to kind of sync up a little bit better.
Yeah. That second room, it was more of the same. And I think what I can gather from most of this scenario is that all the rooms felt very similar, just slightly different tile set and different things in the way. I mean, the first room and the third room were more open, which was kind of cool, but at the same time, there were so many creatures that you kind of got, peri-piped. Like Phil did in the very last room when he went in first all by himself before Gaz had to come in and save him. But yeah, it was very much like...
Did someone say Perry Piper?
Yeah, I did. It was very much a scenario that felt, honestly, like when we revealed that third room and saw that last Earth Demon, it was another one that was like, I think this is done.
Yeah.
Right?
This one didn't seem very hard. Like I would say that we didn't have many, if any, that I can think of like oh shit moments where we're like, oh, this could be tricky.
With the exception of Phil on his own at the end, but because he was shuffling the same 3 cards and handing them to you for short rests like every 2 returns. So
and what made that worse was that he was poisoned and on 1 health.
Yeah.
Right. But we managed to just completely divert all the attacks away from him. Right. So, but he'd resigned himself to dying, which was fine. But that wasn't going to make us lose. So, but in saying that, like, not every scenario has to be, scenario 10 comes down to the last draw of the last modifier card to win, because when you're doing that, there's just too much that can go wrong. So I think it was kind of cool to have a more of a kind of casual, slower flow scenario for Phil to try his new character, so he had time to read his cards and try a few things. Sucked that everything was flying, so it didn't matter what that card said. But it definitely got to that point where we're like, okay, cool, we're gonna kill that guy and we're fine, right?
Yeah.
Basically, in that last room, once we killed the drakes, we weren't going to take much damage. So
we were burning XP cards essentially. Like I played birds for the top. Yeah. And I actually got away with it. And they're really bad. They died so fast to the imps. But, they were there, gave me 2 XP. Mark's Shambler, he managed to get that in there and that started, doing work. And it just came down to just killing that last Earth Demon and collecting the loot and then sayonara, right?
Yep.
But, it was super in the bag. What are your thoughts on the whole scenario?
Look, I really liked it. I thought that it was... a simple scenario. I like the way that they did the drop off the Earth Demons. Like it's with the scenarios we've played, I could see them doing this scenario, but in a way more complex way, right? Like adding different rules, different tiles you've got to dig up, different ways of trying to get this dirt. But it was just hey, there's going to be a monster in every room you got to kill and you got to loot it. So from that perspective, I thought it was pretty clean.
Very clean.
The way that they chose the monsters for this along with it also worked really well, because it pretty much meant that, as you said, most of the monsters could fly, right? Being, because most of the monsters were forest imps. And most of the rooms got clogged and they were eating any element to attack two targets. So it kind of was like they were just able to hit all of us all the time, which is cool. Like, it sucked because we're getting heaps of curses and that sucks. But at the same point, like, I like, from a design perspective, they've put those monsters into a kind of not a tight scenario, but definitely one that that they were going to be able to hit you from pretty much everywhere, but you probably couldn't get to all of them.
On the other side of that, cool. On the other side of that, you're right with the multi-target cursing, but because we had basically exhausted all the curses at the start and they were floating around everyone's decks, it no longer became an issue, right?
Yeah.
So that part became trivial, and then it was more like, not the double curse one, but the poison one. Then it was like, oh, that's annoying, right? Having to deal with that. But I talked to the guys about this afterwards, and this is where I have to separate myself, just the way I do with Intrepid, the board game. I have to separate the actual scenario itself, which I agree with you, to my experience in it. Like, I didn't have the most fun, just because of the flying. The flying, ultimately, like, it's nothing wrong with the scenario, and I'm going to look at it and say, oh, this is not a fun scenario, this is crap. I actually think it's a actually well-done scenario, and I like the whole travel rules and just the tightness of the corridor. I like all of that. And like, you're right, the mob choice as well, I really like that as well. You got your high-priority targets, your big tanky dude, but you need to kill for the goal and all of that. I personally was struggling with the reasons to be able to do one of the things that my character enjoys doing. And playing with that. And I ended up taking more of a heal and keep everyone topped up and lots of wards and lots of regen. Like, I did more healing in this scenario than I've ever done. Just because it was the majority of that, which is not the most exciting, but it's good for finishing it comfortably, I guess, or getting us there.
So it's really interesting because, I mean, obviously your fun about how you play your character is the most important thing for you. And that's like that. I'm not going to argue that and not be silly about that. Because pardon?
Well, when you say it like that.
No. But like, that's like, it's a super valid point, right? Like, you as you said, a lot of the mobs in the scenario you couldn't interact with in a way you wanted to play your character. On the flip side, though, from the impact you had on the scenario, like, I know that you went more supporty and you used a lot of like heal cards and other bits and pieces you did. Like, I thought you did a great job, right? Like, it felt, for what we needed in the scenario, you did craft and shift your character to be super effective for what we needed.
Yeah.
So I wasn't watching you do things and go like, oh, he's just doing nothing turns, right? It just clearly isn't as fun to do that stuff. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But I guess in that instance, just throwing a little bit of kudos at you for seeing that in advance and kind of going like, I'm going to shift a bit, and then made sure that, well, you might not be having that much fun. You still played the character really well and worked really well. So I think that's a positive for, if we're looking at the whole character class scenario balance. It's not that maybe some characters can't be as fun in some scenarios,
100%.
but it's good to see that they're still effective.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
There was another moment. Our Xhaven app booked us at one stage, and I don't know if anyone else has had this, but I
think the proper term, Australian term, is it shit itself.
It did shit itself, and I think it happened twice, only one that I remember, but I was away from the table at the time, and it happened a second time. But what actually happened was it just kind of like skipped to the next round, midway through a round. So it was like we were looking at the initiative, and someone was acting first, and then someone else was acting, and during their turn, at some stage, like I think it might have been during Phil's turn, the app, and we got a video of it where it just went, all right, cool, next round. And it flipped all the cards back face down and was like, put your initiatives in. And we just kept playing. So we were adding damage, we were minusing damage, we were adding, status effects and all that kind of stuff. And then it wasn't until a little while later that we were like, what the hell's going on? Where's all our initiatives gone? And we wanted to undo it, and we couldn't. And we don't know what happened to cause it to go to the next round. Um, that whole segment, because we had to sit back and go, well, what cards did they pick? You know, what initiative were we all going at? And it just really, it took a little bit of time. It's absolutely no one's fault. It was just, it did take a little bit of the momentum out of
Yep.
the enjoyment. So that was something that kind of did stick with me because it was kind of exhausting, kind of trying to backtrack it and trying to work all that shit out. And at the same time, you know, it was kind of like also the added pressure goes on me for myself because I'm like, I'm trying to host this and make sure everyone has a good time, make sure everything's running smoothly. And when something I've recommended that we use kind of crapped itself, I feel bad for that. And I'm like, you know, that's kind of, you know, how I feel. So it was kind of probably added to my stress.
Yeah, I
For
mean,
that.
I almost like flipped the table and left. And I was gonna be, I'm just not playing anymore. If like this is the kind of crap situation, like what kind of show are you running here, Daddy? Like I thought this was professional Frosthaven tournament edition,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and now yeah. Um, in case the sarcasm was not clear for those that aren't not Australian, or don't know me well enough, no, that's 100% not your fault at all,
No.
right? Like we don't know what the cause of it was anyway, but I think that it shows, and this is the reliance on technology, and you can go down a rabbit hole for
Oh
a
yeah.
deeper conversation about society and where we're at, et cetera, which we won't. But the inability within that app to completely customize the where you want to be is, and that's not alone for that app. In fact, when you were just talking through that, it reminded me of our review of that we played it at Game Mania,
Oh
the
yeah.
one,
The colonies
right,
one. Yeah.
the colony one, right, and the inability to, when we had problems with that, to be able to go, okay, just show me the matrix of everything and I will move the levers to make the game how we need it to be so we can pick it up,
Yeah.
because the game says no, 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 I know better than you, just here's an interface, you can't do it. um I almost, and I'm not a developer, so I don't want to say it's easy to do, but that would be a really good quality of life feature as a backup, because we had to figure out a way to make that happen.
Mm.
And it was going through the cards and drawing and figuring out what was what, which, and I think we got there in the end. But yeah, it definitely did sap it a little bit. I didn't feel it as much as you, but then I'm not putting all this extra pressure on myself to host the whole thing. So I feel like that's kind of all of our burden, so you shouldn't have to carry it.
No, no, no. It's more like whereas we were playing with Secretariat and you know learning some of the things along the way. Same with X Haven. It's just something we look out for now, and the biggest indicator of that happening would be the initiative numbers disappearing.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of. I think that Secretariat has an option on there that when you press next round, it comes up with a prompt to say, "Hey, are you sure could have been a situation where one of us actually hit it by accident?"
Yeah.
But if you do it in this, at least I tried it on my phone just before we started recording, and it just was like next turn, cool, and I
Yeah.
went straight to the next turn, which is actually very subtle because none of us were paying attention when it happened.
Yep.
And next, when you know, Mark's making all these adjustments to everything as we're playing on the table. But yes,
Yeah.
technology with
Well,
board games can
if
be
the
a little bit
developer is
fragile.
listening, right, and I'm sure he or she or they are, right?
Okay.
Like, yeah, just here's a, like, if you can chuck that in there, that'd be great. Just a quick, if there's anybody left who has actions left, just prompt and say, "Are you sure?"
For all I
Like,
know, it's probably in the settings. I did have a look.
oh no, we're gonna get so
Oh
much
no,
mail now.
I know. I had a look twice, and I was talking
Yep.
to Phil out loud when I was going through it, but no.
Mm.
All right, Ormi segment. Is this an Ormi scenario? 100%.
Yeah, yeah. Ormy would love
100%.
this one. He wouldn't be able to travel.
I
He'd get
know.
stuck in the first room.
Yes, and nothing could focus him, and he couldn't focus anything else.
This is his ideal place. He would just set up a little space, he'd clear the room and say, "You know what, Ormy, you stay here. This is your tree and your space to just live in."
Yeah, it'd be kind of cute because you get towards
Yep.
the end, and he'd just be literally sitting in the first room, and you just know he's safe. Nothing's gonna
That's it.
surprise him like he did in our scenario.
Yeah, yeah. So I think if we haven't been doing this from the start, but 100% this would, so far this is the number one Ormy scenario.
Yeah, we need to go back and make a tier list for all my scenarios and just.
We do.
I think
We
that'd be
do.
cool.
That's our next tier list. Yeah.
Two-player scenario. So one of the main things that changes is there's not as many forest imps,
I
but
hope so. I hope not.
there's only one rending drake in the whole scenario, and it's in the first room.
Oh, really?
And it's, I think, a normal or maybe an elite or whatever, but you get a lot less mobs.
Hmm.
Actually, I don't think it's too bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I mean, you could get overwhelmed, especially with the misses. This is where
Fragility.
the curses become an RNG nightmare because,
Yeah.
like we've talked about with two players, the action economy goes down and becomes way more important. If you have misses and you just draw them, this is where RNG just completely screws you, which is what we talked about when we chatted with Dwarf about that. It's like, it's not necessarily harder with two people, but it's less forgiving for mistakes, and you can also get worse, screwed more over by RNG.
Mm.
So with 4 or 5 mobs per room that are throwing curses in your deck, like
It's,
that's a lot of curses. And that's a lot of chance to just be like, you just keep missing.
it's a good point considering they used up the whole curse deck within the first 2 rounds, and we maybe drew 3 to 4 for the whole scenario.
I drew like 4 myself.
Yeah, okay, Mark drew 1, but you know what I mean? Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't, it could have been especially on Mark's big boy.
Mm.
It could have been way more like, oh, I guess we're just going to stay in this room while we still deal with these creatures instead of moving on, right? If they
Yeah,
came up a little bit more.
that's it. And the gross combo with them is the throwing curses in your deck, and then the next turn drawing everyone gets muddled, right?
Yeah,
Because then you pretty much like with 4 or 5 curses in your deck, you got such a good chance of just not being able to do whatever you want.
you got a good chance
So
of drawing both curses, right, and emptying your deck.
that's it. That's it. That's what you're going to do. Multi-target attacks that hit everything. So
So yeah, that was scenario 69, which has put a calendar event in Frosthaven, which we will deal with. I believe will be in summer by the time we get to it. But yeah,
yeah,
it brings us closer to Mark's retirement. Phil's Misswatch. Now, one thing I did notice that was really satisfying actually was when he would flip his modified deck and he drew a red card. We have not seen that in a long time.
no, I know,
It was
it's
pretty
crazy.
funny
He,
to
he was
watch.
like, "What's going on with this? What's that color? Is red good? Is red like extra good?"
Yeah.
Like,
And but he also pulled his crit, I think once or twice, so still hasn't missed. So I guess we'll keep that tradition because, why not?
I did. I drew my miss and used my potion.
Actually, Mark drew his nat miss as well instead of the
Yeah.
curse. Actually, at one
So
point, which was pretty funny. Oh, you
miss
used
watch
your
for me
potion.
is
You actually got.
0.
Is that the first time you got to use it?
Yeah. First time in like 3 or 4 scenarios. Yeah. So I did actually. I used that, and it meant that 1 less miss for the scenario. So yeah.
Community thoughts around 69 have. It hasn't been too much. A little bit was about the timing and rules of the transporting,
Yep.
which we kind of cleared up there a little bit. There was a situation with difficulty due to bad luck. So I did read a thread somewhere that someone finished. We just finished losing scenario 69, and they felt like they had no chance. They've got 2 level 4 characters, Blinkblade and Boneshaper, level 3 Drifter, and the OP just retired. So he had a level 2 trap, and we had the burn cards turn 1 before players got a turn. Crit from Elite Rending Drake at initiative 12. Consistently just got absolutely barraged by imps, and the shield on them made the Boneshaper skeletons hardly useful. And then the scenario gimmick was destroying hand sizes. Closer winning towards the end, and then they pulled the attack 3s at advantage because of the strengthen of the
Gross. That is okay.
But I mean, like that's the only the thing that I found. And the general consensus of it is you guys just got wrecked by RNG, right? It was
Yeah.
it's just,
That's a tricky one because I don't know the trap, but it doesn't sound like I was going to mention the trap when you're talking about flying monsters, but I assume that traps that it would suffer in the same kind of instance because they don't trigger them, right? And I feel like if Mark hadn't been level 8, like if he had gone into that at level 7,
yeah, okay.
I think that makes a massive difference for how
Yeah.
that goes because it was squishy,
Yeah.
right? Like super squishy the whole time, and he was really only controlling one guy at that stage. But 2, with the shields, skeletons are hitting for 1, right? Like on a normal draw. So
He does have that buff card that increases their health by 1 and their movement by 1 and their
they get
PS1.
Yeah, okay.
So he probably would have brought that, but he probably would have bought the Don't Take Retaliate instead because that's how Mark rolls.
But yeah, definitely that just sounds like RNG. Bad luck. But yeah, that advantage with that attack card. Like that's gross.
Drift this. Battle goals. So Mark had Ritualist, which, I mean, a lot of these are still floating around in our deck. Kill an enemy while 3 or more elements are strong or waning. Now, he doesn't remember whether or not he got this. And because we record our sessions now so that I can do the outtake kind of funny moments and all that kind of stuff in our YouTube, he wants me to watch the whole thing back and see whether or not he killed something while 3 elements were up. And I said, no. So if you can't track your own battle goal, not going to happen.
That's fair.
So he
And
did that.
for the like, we had so many elements up so often because I'm making light and dark, right? Mark is making grass and dark.
I'm
Phil
making
is
ice
now
and
making
wind.
fire and grass,
Yeah.
right? And you're making ice and wind.
Yeah.
Like we have all the elements covered. So there was so many turns we're looking and going like, okay, which of the 3 or 4 elements are the imps going to eat on their
Yeah.
turn, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was tricky.
So yes, he probably got it, but yeah, we guess not. Mark, guess not.
Guess not.
Phil had Tormentor. Apply a different negative condition to an enemy that already has 1 or more negative conditions. We've had this one heaps of times, and Phil has had this heaps of times, and he finally got it off because of you.
Yeah.
Oh, I just vaguely now remember him saying thank you guys for helping me with that.
Oh, yeah. I've got a potion that does wound, and I think I put it on something, and then he went along and did something to it.
Yeah, okay.
'Cause I don't do other than that. I haven't got the cards. I'm not using cards at the moment that let me do that. So
yeah, you had.
oh yeah,
Mm,
I chose this. Actually, was a really good scenario for this.
yeah, it
because
was
it was
actually.
small and it didn't really matter.
Yeah, you took your sweet time. You guys had Slowpoke. Move no more than 2 hexes on each turn, which I did have a couple of ones ago with the elevator, but I moved 8 on the last turn, so it went back in the pool. Gaz did not. He definitely moved 2 every single round to the point where we're like, when are you going to jump on the tile to, go in?
I haven't got enough legs.
Yeah, well, funny.
It was the moments as well were when you were like, because this is the
birds.
thing, right? Like you've been going on for the last 3 or 4 weeks about being a bird bot, and that's why if you go back and watch the video, you'll notice that any time you're like, I'm gonna birds, my reaction isn't like, yeah, and at no point do I ask, are you gonna birds? Like I don't care about birds. You could have cast birds and summoned 2 at the very start, and I would have been like, good. At least the temptation's gone.
Like, I had birds in the very first room. I was like, I'm going to play birds. And Mark was like, really? And I was like, I've only got 2 cards left. Like, and one of them's birds. Like, I haven't found a reason to use it, but I want to use it.
Yeah, I feel like you're now that band that has that hit single that everyone really loved and wanted. Like, oh, you play that song. And now you're going out and you're like, oh, I'm gonna play that song. People are like, oh, again.
Yeah.
Like, are you still playing that song?
Do you have anything else? You're still bringing that. So
yeah, have you got like birds too? Like,
no.
are you gonna release a follow up?
No, we are not. And then me. I had Promoter. So perform an ability targeting an ally before your first rest and in between each of your rests. This was kind of easy for me. Because I spent so much time regenerating, warding, and strengthening. Actually, that's what I remember.
Just funnily enough, though, you did that one on your drifter.
Yeah, that was much harder on the drifter.
Yeah, I remember you stressing over that and doing some real weird plays. Like, really weird.
Yeah, not hitting something because my top I needed to use as the heal. Yes.
Yep. And you're like, and I'm gonna heal you. And you're like, but like this guy is really low. Like heal him, and you're like, oh, I can't get there. And you're like, oh, okay, this is bizarre.
I'm almost certain I was healing people that were on full health at some stages. Like, someone come in just so I could squeeze it in between the rests. All right, DPS meters. Now we're gonna have this. Mark's actually put this in a cool little Excel spreadsheet thing. Which visually, interestingly enough, when I look at it, unfortunately, makes me kind of, I don't know. It's interesting seeing it in a chart. All right, so we're gonna go.
Is the one in the channel correct? Like, just so I can follow along.
Yeah.
Okay.
The most recent one on the channel is correct. So damage done. He's got me. So 29. I finished off with 29, and that was out without using any hazardous terrain, I guess. Which actually is not too bad, I guess. Oh. I had my fox out, so yes.
Your fox did work. I think that you need to find a way of getting that fox in more often.
This was a good scenario for the fox. Until it got stuck up the back in that second room, and then yeah, like it was just a shit show for pets. It was really hard. So yeah, we finished with 29. Gaz had 58, which
Whoa,
is fairly large.
it is large. I
Very
didn't realize
large.
I did that much.
No, neither did I. But you were definitely you were the guy that was taking care of the little red dudes.
Drakes.
Yeah, that. They were
Yeah,
drakes. So you were in the front line, absorbing what they were throwing and dealing with them. Phil had 51, which is huge for a
Whoa.
level 2 media. He had
Massive,
some
massive.
massive AoE exploding obstacle stuff. And it helps when he pulls his crit, I guess. But no one can beat Mark on the Boneshaper with extra large fatty on 75. Which,
Bone Daddy himself.
yeah, and this time it was interesting because he wasn't doing little tiny stab damage. It was just whack.
Yeah, there was
like
no
a tree.
complaining from Phil of like, oh, your damage is going off the page. I'm not going to record it anymore.
No. So damage taken, I had 15. Gaz had 43. Now that's pretty substantial because unlike Mark's tanking, where right now he either loses a pet or he can remove a token. I'm not taking away from that. That's still very effective. You're taking this basically to the face. You know what I mean? So that's a lot.
And that's 22. Is that 22 mitigated?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's good because the last one we went through, I think I took a decent amount of damage, but it didn't feel like I mitigated as much. But this one, I just got a new card that helped me do a bit more. So yeah, I think I'll be able to take that role a bit more.
Yeah. No, it's really cool to see. Phil had 19 and mitigated 6. Damage taken, probably a bit of the last room. Mark took 58 and mitigated 27 of it. And to run it up, healing, I finished with 34. Gaz finished with 9. Phil with 8. And wow, he's healing more than his Deathwalker. And at level 2. And Mark with 28.
So looking at this, did Mark top every meter?
Not healing, but he came close.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, you did 34. Wow, that's massive.
I was having this chat with Phil, and I was just like, that's 34 healing, but all my heals are coming from my abilities. And Mark's got the boots, which is when he goes late, he gets 1 heal. He keeps drawing his have you noticed how many times he chain heals the rolling modifier?
Yep.
Which obviously we're counting. And then, he's got a lot of heals that he's been dumping into his pet and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So moving forward, I'm going to pay attention to tracking my regens because I feel like I did a lot of healing with regen. And I wouldn't mind finding a way to track my ward damage absorption and finding a way to say that was mitigation, right? No?
Hey, if you want to, like I said, you can track everything.
Better.
Like when the conversation around tracking Bane came up and versus tracking Wound and blah, 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 I said, track whatever you can be bothered tracking. Like Bane is easy to track because it's one source of 10 damage.
Yeah,
Wound is a pain in the ass to track because you have to remember to do it every time.
Yeah.
If you want to track regen, track regen.
No, that's completely fair. Let's burn through this outpost phase. So no calendar event this time. The outpost event.
Our calendar is finished. We had a really busy schedule towards the end of winter. Everyone wanted to see us, all these things happening, and now we're done. We're kind of like through that busy period.
Yes. We're basically ready to end the winter and head into summer. Do you remember our outpost event? No, you don't.
Yes, 100%.
No.
It was there was one where there was a guy and he needed to do a thing about some stuff. Oh, I do actually remember.
Okay.
I do. Is this is the one where
I didn't
they're
take part of
trigger
it.
happy trader people? Yeah,
What?
they were like, "Who left the door open? It must be a traitor."
Yeah.
Yeah. This is
So this is one of those ones that's kind of like a riddle, logic puzzle kind of thing. They're really cool. I know Gaz really likes them. In fact, everyone really liked it except me. Not that I didn't like it. I just don't like trying to hurt myself trying to do it. If it was just me and like Phil, I'd get into it and really try and do it. I just know that this is a strength of yours and Mark's. And what I liked about this one, it was cool because everyone got to compare notes and they came to different conclusions, and then it came to deducing how did you come to that and how did you come to that and all of that. So I don't mind these. These are interesting. What I have noticed though, can you remember the last time we got attacked?
Nah, it's been ages ago.
It's been a
I think
hot
since we
minute.
stopped complaining, since we started complaining that the attacks are useless, they were just like, let's not bother.
Yeah.
They're like, oh no, Frosthaven, they just left the door open. Maybe we'll go attack somewhere else.
Yeah, no, it's super weird that we haven't in a while. But I mean, I guess it's okay. We're seeing all these other ones. It just means the deck is probably still filled with attack ones that we'll cop next winter.
Yeah, we'll cop later. Yeah.
You
also though you had a weird situation where because we do the events through Fatella, right? That it gave you that answer.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Fortella,
so to paint the picture, basically the scenario came down to the logic puzzle of picking who the guilty person was, right? And there was 4 options basically, right? And so what was displayed on the app?
Oh, one option and otherwise, right? If you pick the wrong one, if you didn't pick that option. But the thing is, once it plays the audio, Fortella usually goes, did you pick A or B? And you select it and it plays the next audio part. This one was, did you pick this or did you pick something else? And it was one of the answers and it was staring at me and I looked at my phone and it was like waiting for me to make a choice and I'm like, oh, there's the answer. So that was another reason why I didn't take part in the discussion and I waited for everyone else to sort it out. But yeah, that was a bit weird. Like, I don't know what to do about that moving forward because, I don't know if I pause it right towards the end just so it doesn't go to the next screen, but that was the first time it kind of spoiled it for me.
Yeah, I hope, because I mean, for those type of puzzles, it's not that bad because you've just said that it's not your jam completely, so it's almost fine if you don't. That one being spoiled for you wasn't a big deal essentially, but I know we had the one with the maze, right, where we all had to pick different things. If on that one, right, it had said, if you choose this one, then go here or any other ones, then you would have known that again is the right one, and that almost then takes you out of doing it. So I don't know. It's only happened once, so I don't know if we.
Once out of so long. I mean, you're right. It's probably not something to worry about, but it's something that I'd probably look at, like getting fixed potentially, in some capacity, just because it will ruin it for someone, unfortunately. So look out for that. We upgraded one building. We upgraded the alchemist.
Yes. So now we brew.
Now just say that again because you lagged out.
So now we can brew 3 herb potions.
Floppy dick potions.
Oh, so many. We got so many.
Nice. So we didn't actually. Oh no, because we did that at the end, so we can't actually do that. So that's next time. We're reducing the sausage fest that we've actually got going. Now here's something I want to chat about as well. Where to go next? You're the only one that I haven't spoken to about this. I've spoken to Phil and Mark individually, which means I'm repeating it for the 3rd time. You know how the scenario flow chart, it actually shows you like what leads to what scenario leads to what, right? So it gives you an indicator of how many scenarios are in a given line or anything like that. My PQ involves a scenario, as you know, and it's unlocked it. I've decided I'm not going to do it. I want to play my Snowflake for quite a while. Now that we've seen what happens with marks, right, it's going to basically end in, like, the next part is time gated for 2 to 3 weeks. Now, if mine doesn't immediately unlock another one after it, and I've got to wait 2 or 3 weeks in between all of mine, I'm pretty sure mine has 4 based on the flow chart, which means I may not retire for another 12. And
it wouldn't be surely they wouldn't all be time gated by 2 or 3 weeks. That would be terrible.
Don't know. It may be something that you're expected to do early. All I know is we were thinking about going straight down unfettered. I'm a little worried that I kind of want to knock my first one out.
Yeah, okay.
Right? For that reason. Just because if it does unlock on something immediately, then I'm not so worried. But I just am worried that I've already done 6 of Snowflake. If it does average out to be something like that, I'll be looking at 18 full scenarios as Snowflake.
Yeah. Actually, it's a good point because I know that the design is that they want you to play 15, 20 scenarios, right? Like
I think it's more like 10, 15.
10, it's 10, 15, right?
I think so, yeah.
So having 4 scenarios, if they're not time gated, then you'd be able to do it in 4. Right? So you're probably right. They probably are time gated at least or at least 1 or 2 of them will be time gated by like 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, it's probably a good idea to to crack on through.
Just so I have a little bit more control over it. Otherwise, I
Yeah.
have a feeling I'm going to be stuck with it. So I think we're going to be doing that one,
We're doing more side missions.
which is not too bad.
That's right.
Which is actually somewhat refreshing. All right, now amDirt Mail. I've got a really cool email I actually received today. It was actually about 3 hours ago. I'm just going to quickly read it out. It's quite nice. I was about to say, I'm about to read out what I wrote back, which is not what it was. Hey guys, love the podcast. Very funny. Gives me a different appreciation of the game. Different characters, dynamics, and insights. Appreciate your efforts and humor. My 14-year-old son and I have played about 45 scenarios over 6 months. Probably 30 of them with just 2 characters. So this is kind of in line with letting us know how an experience kind of goes with 2 people. 2 characters is harder, but we've been fine failing 5 times. They're doing better than us. We are experienced playing Gloomhaven and Draws the Line twice. So Gloomhaven once, I believe, and Draws the Line twice. And we focus our resources on items more than outpost buildings, though we're keeping up with Frosthaven fine. We tried a few combos at first and settled on Drifter and Boneshaper, an excellent combination, not on the bridge compared to the other 2, which worked out very well. Flexible Drifter could hit hard or move fast as needed, or tank a bit till the Bone army was fully up and running. The only problematic scenarios were speed, escape for all characters, slow, necromancer, and a couple of bosses. In addition to the starters, we've opened Coral, Snowflake, Meteor, Shackle, Trap, and Moon Star. Of those, we tried 2 character with a few other combos, Snowflake and Meteor being the one that we have the most fun with. We've had an any Haven. I haven't had a single loss and on +1 difficulty.
Wow.
The other 15 scenarios, we tried a mixture of 3 and 4 characters. All a ton of fun and interesting character mixes and matches. It's definitely a different puzzle with more characters. And we've each retired 3 to 4 characters. But at this point, I'll skip any more spoilers. I agree with you that the variety of scenarios is just amazing, and the mix of kill, everything, and other goals makes for such an enriching experience. Keep up the good work on the podcast, Jason and Noah from DC. And I like this because I like the idea of, father playing with his son and having that kind of like to play through that many Haven experiences and to share that as a family is really, really cool. And it's cool that we get to see, a 2-person experience, but also, to be able to sit down at nighttime and do that with your family is awesome. And I love that.
Yes, was that Jason and Noel, was it?
Yep.
All right. Well, look, cheers, guys. Thanks for shouting out. Thanks for listening and writing in, taking the time to write in and share your experiences because I think we've spoken about it before, but we're just playing the game and just talking about the game because we find that fun, right? That's where this all came out of. And, we've already been able to meet like just so many people, different people from the community, and it's kind of expanded our experience of the game in a sense.
Yeah.
Because we played Gloomhaven, but other than our friends that we played with, that was it. It was just contained there. So this is really cool to be able to be part of the Discord, speak to people there. We get people writing in, telling us what their experiences and how they've gone and, kind of strike up conversations with them. So, really do appreciate people kind of, again, connecting with us because it's awesome.
And I love reading it and I love, responding to them and all of that. So, no, Jason and your son, Noah, good luck with the rest of it. And let us know how the next half of your campaign goes.
Well, my kids are a bit young, so maybe when Gloomhaven 3 comes out.
That's what I was going to ask you. So when are you getting Dash involved? When are you getting, Dash and Winter, your daughter and son?
Well, at the moment, we get about 2.5 games of Uno in, and then the attention span starts to wane. So I feel like maybe once we can get 5 games of Uno in, then that might be ready to start.
Give them the Geminate, and they can play one ranged and one melee.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, cool. Yeah, then they can feel my pain, right?
Very much so. All right. So recently, as in I think today, maybe last night, I don't know. A Gloomhaven Reddit post went up, and it was about sharing, and they put it house rules / cheating in Frosthaven. And
has this already happened?
Yeah, but it's a fresh one. It's a nice fresh one.
Okay. Oh,
and I saw a lot of the guys in the Frosthaven Discord talking about it, and I was like, I want to check this out. Now, I have no issues. Like, it's not about issues, right? It's just people play the game the way they want to, and it's just I find it amusing. So I'm not taking anything away from anyone else who wants to play it however they play it. It props to anyone who comes up with a lot of these, and if they're having an absolute blast, that's amazing. They need to know that don't let anyone take that away from you.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I'm allowed to talk with Gaz about it and just get Gaz's opinion on some of these variants and whether or not he thinks they're fun for us or
Mhm.
for something like that. So one of the
Yep.
ones, and this is actually quite a funny one that went up. I think someone in the Discord was, you may have seen it. Someone in the Discord actually said that they joined a group and they're already playing with a variant, which is +1 to your hand size.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see that? Do you like the idea of that?
Sure, why not? You get more cards.
Imagine it on the Geminate.
Do you get 2 extra cards?
No, I think you just get one more, but still, like,
No, that doesn't work.
you have to be even.
Well, I mean, you have to have 7 and 7. There's nothing
Oh,
about even, but
oh,
yeah.
well, the Gemini doesn't work with that variant then.
No.
What
Yeah,
about?
look, I mean, sure, why not? That's more fun. You get to do more things.
Yeah, okay, yeah, more things, more fun.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
There is a disclaimer with all of these is that unless I say I would play with it, right? I'm not endorsing people to play with it, right? But if just a comment on what do I think about this, and if we're talking purely from a fun perspective, great. That sounds like one that I've heard that would increase the amount of fun you have.
Okay. Enemies don't immediately take a turn when a door is opened. Yeah, they feel whoever's going to. This is the person who actually made the thread. They feel whoever's going to open the door is going to burn cards to too much damage.
Look, I think that it's probably too open to abuse, right? Like you just open the door at 90 plus, right? You make sure a slow person opens the door and suddenly the monsters never get a turn.
Mm.
That's the only problem I have with it. Like it doesn't solve. I don't think it's solving a problem that really exists.
I think
would probably.
I think part of it is you open the door under the pretense that you're going to get booked a little bit, and you plan accordingly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in Frosthaven especially, that's barely even a thing,
No,
right? Like
it's not.
we've been talking about this, since Mark joined, because he's been with us now for about 5 scenarios. He's like, I haven't really had any scenarios that have been in room, go move, open door, go to room, open door, which is 80% of the Gloomhaven ones, right?
Yeah.
So, but playing Gloomhaven, you play around it. Like you don't move and end your turn on a door. You get booked, right? So you move, and then you make sure you've got enough movement to open the door and move away.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
Each tick at max perks, so you've done everything like Phil did. You keep getting battle goals, and each time you get a tick, and maybe a double tick, but for each tick, you get a loot card at the end.
I love it. That's great.
It'll break the economy.
No.
Yes,
Don't break the economy.
100% will.
What? How is it breaking the economy?
Because if you times that by the amount of people who maybe have done that, now look, obviously not everyone's going to have maxed it out unless they're max level, but you're bringing additional stuff into Frosthaven that wasn't there to begin with. And then all of a sudden you have an influx of resources. I know very well because a certain Alex told me that his campaign, they are poor on resources.
Yeah, but okay. I hear what you're saying, but that's in a vacuum. Yes, sure. Adding extra resources that you would never have had, right? Yes, it does break the economy of the game. But I don't think this is doing that, right? Okay, if we think about so far, all of the characters that we've had, I believe that only Phil has gotten to max perks.
Yeah, okay. I see what you mean.
Right? And even then, you're only getting 1, potentially 2. Maybe you could limit it at 1, but I don't know, 1 or 2. But I would say that I don't think we've been through a scenario where we've looted every tile.
I guess it's hard to say because we're not struggling with resources, but if I ever got to a stage where we were, and knowing that if you finish a scenario on like another, this house rules generated an extra 4 or 5 over the whole thing. It may not seem like a big deal, but that could be the timing of whether or not you get a build done or an upgrade done, especially if you are really broke with resources.
Yeah,
right?
True. I think what it does is I think it makes looting slightly less important, which I don't think is a bad thing, because I don't think spending time on looting is necessarily a fun part of the game. Right? Again, disclaimer: we're not playing with this. I'm not endorsing that we bring it in.
No.
But I don't think it's ridiculous. I thought you were going to say something like, "Oh, for every tick that they get over, they get 30 gold or something like that." Right? That's dumb.
No, there are some that use money. There are some that will
use
give
money, but like I thought it was going to be a dumb number, right? Like so you get heaps. But I feel like 1 loot card is at most it's going to be what, 9 gold which is again that doesn't fuck
Yeah,
the
but
economy up.
I'm always gonna know that there's that one lumber that it's not ours.
It's not really. You're gonna like that brick there, that piece of wood in the wall. That's not really ours. We stole it. Yeah, yeah. So
Speaking of loot shared between players, and swap out whatever you want. Do you want this? I'll have this.
I think we've talked about this.
And
Oh wait, is there
looting.
more?
Well, looting everything at the end of a scenario. We had time. Everything's dead. Why not take everything that we rightfully earn? Which, look, the argument against it is a very obvious one. It's like, well, you no longer have that choice between tactical looting versus running ahead and clearing up something and all of that. So yes,
Yeah.
there's that. Auto retiring at 9, or choosing that you when you get to level 9, even if you haven't finished your PQ, you can retire.
Do you just complete your PQ?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I guess. Like, I mean, maybe, but it's kind of like
It's so interesting watching you and trying to work out whether or not you want to say what's really on your mind versus.
No, like that's genuine thinking about it. I feel like the what you were probably seeing there is like, what other parts of the game do you want to skip? Right? Like that's like saying, okay, well, I didn't really want to do this PQ, but I got to 9 and I don't want to play this character anymore. Okay. It's like, oh, we got to this scenario and it didn't seem like it was very much fun, so we just skipped over it and just read the end. Right? I mean, like,
I guess half the challenge is if it's one that involves collecting herbs or something like that, you actively need to loot to then search for it. But now you don't have to worry about that anymore, right?
because you're looting everything for free or you're getting free loot
Well,
with
you
your
don't
battles.
even need the herbs anymore because you can just
Yeah.
retire.
Yeah,
At night.
yeah, look, I think I would say no, but that's more from because it skips part of the game. And and not just like as in, oh, you need to do things to make yourself retire, but there's scenarios, there's other things that can pop in and out that you have to do that impact that. So yeah, I'd say no.
Okay. Retired money goes to your new character.
No, that's no.
Can you imagine if Phil got that?
Oh god.
Instant enhancements.
Although he had no money left because he had to spend it all to retire.
True, that's true.
Although no, he had to acquire the money. Yeah. I mean,
well, it's instant enhancements, right?
Pardon?
It's instant enhancements on your cards.
Yeah, yeah. Look, again, I guess going back to rethinking that for a second and backtracking a little bit, going back to the answer to my first one, it would be more fun, right? Because you would have more money, which means you'd actually have spare money to buy enhancements with. And I mean, no one's buying enhancements ever anyway, so you may as well throw a few of them in there.
This becomes a snowball effect, though, is that it's more fun because, the game ends up becoming a little bit easy to the point where are you still having fun? It's like the argument among some of the lock classes from Gloomhaven are so broken that after you're playing with them for a while, you're like, man, this is amazing. It's all of a sudden no longer fun because it makes it too easy.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, you can, crank up the difficulty, right? Like, but yeah, I get what you're saying. You can't just keep increasing everyone's power level because it's more fun because it's just an arms race. Yeah, you get to a point where it doesn't become fun anymore.
Different
the money thing is interesting. I don't think so, but it is the part I don't like is the I'm retiring now, so I'm just going to sell everything and chuck everything into Frosthaven and then enhance all my cards.
Yeah, okay.
Or the next person coming along. Like, I don't like that. I feel like I don't know what the answer is. It's an answer. I wouldn't play with it, but it seems fine. I guess
one of the responses from that was people enjoy the going from 0 to hero again when you build a new character. So not starting with so much of an advantage and actually working towards getting the bit of gear to get that tiny bit ahead again, to get a little bit and building it up so that you feel like there's something in the progression that's really rewarding. From a different angle, I guess.
Frosthaven did a really good job of making the items harder to get because you have to craft them and find them, right? You find the recipes and craft them compared to Gloomhaven, where you would start a new character, get heaps of gold, and just go through and go like, well, I'll buy, right? Like you just insta buy all the best stuff. I feel like from a potions perspective, we could get there if we eventually have enough potions through all of Frosthaven that we don't need to craft anymore, that we'd have enough in the storehouse, or a new character would start and just kind of take your pick of which ones you want.
Yeah.
But I feel like, starting with the gold, maybe especially because you can get the shop that lets you buy things eventually, it just get to a point where you're starting a new character and you basically had to deck them all the way out, and that in itself creates a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I agree. I think that for people that said that it stops that fun journey of like having nothing and building yourself up. It kind of does get rid of that a bit.
One actively opened up with, I'm probably going to cop a lot of shit for this, but short resting is normal. Normal rules for short resting. Long resting equal no loss of card.
I mean, it's a different game then, right? Like,
well, I mean, the caveat is it's a family. You know, people don't like stressing over losing cards and the, you know, the fatiguing of running out of more options as the game goes. So they want chill haven. You know, not Frost, but chill.
I'd be curious I mean, these people surely played through Gloomhaven.
Probably.
Like, what family is picking up Frosthaven for the first time and then trying to house rule things in the game, right? Like, that's not a thing, surely.
I mean, they could have used these in Gloomhaven and enjoyed it, so they wanted to take it.
Yeah, that's what I mean, though, right? So, no.
Okay.
I just because at that point it starts making things really arbitrary, right? Like I think there's other ways of. I would rather the +1 card to your hand than not losing a card at long resting. Because realistically, how many times do you long rest in a scenario? Like, if it's not a super hectic one, maybe twice at most.
I think in a way it means you can really, really take your time and set up before you open a door. But also don't forget, this ultimately means unlimited long resting, right? But that means also fully healing before you go into a new room.
Essentially. But, I mean, like, you can't... There's no prep time or take your time in Frosthaven. That's what I mean. This scene in Gloomhaven, this would be dumb, right? Because everyone would just always be full health and have all their cards every time they went into a room. But Frosthaven, you don't get time to scratch your ass, let alone like long rest before you go into a room.
That's true.
Like,
there's a lot more
the only reason
things in place to get you to get the move on.
Yeah, like I'm long resting a lot more on my crab because I have a perk that when I long rest, I get +1 shield. So if I have my shield cards out and I do that, I'm kind of like able to go forward and long rest and kind of absorb a bunch of damage, and then I heal back up and then I can go. So that's why I'm long resting more. But yeah, it's
Gaz casts Harden.
Yeah, pretty much. It's super effective.
100% miss, which means that if I attack something and I miss any condition that were tied to it, any element that I was going to create from it, all that kind of stuff, none of it lands, but also in the reverse from monsters. So it's a true miss.
Yeah, sure, I guess.
I love the sure guess response.
Like, I don't know. I don't feel either way about that. Like, I suppose it's fine. Like, okay, I won't sit on the fence. I'm a hard no on that because it just makes the game less fun.
Okay. Yeah,
like,
okay.
Missing is
already rough if you miss.
Yeah, and we've talked about this, I think, with the people that take the miss out and put like another -2 or something like in that there, and people who change it around so you keep going until you've finished your deck. And there's a whole bunch of different ways of doing it, of mitigating that bad luck. But if you are... When you draw that miss, it's the closest thing to skip a turn. We talked about stun and the fact that I don't think stun should be in the game because it sucks from a fun perspective. Removing the fact, like, players are going to miss way more often. Like, it's going to feel bad more often than it is going to feel good because the monster that attacked you with poison didn't get to add the poison on.
This is coming from someone who does miss more than anyone.
All the time. Yes. But then again, with this character, I don't apply status effects, so it wouldn't affect me either way.
Summons loot at the end of their turn.
Huh?
Summons, they loot at the end of their turn.
What, where they're standing? No.
Kind of favors one character or slightly more than the others, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, that's like going, okay, and looting, just pick a square on the board every time you stop moving and you can just pick a loot up.
This one is probably the most, and I was meant to cover this back in episode 7 when we took a break and we covered our variants, and I totally forgot. And I think it's the one that is most widely used by most groups.
Yeah.
It's the card leveling up variant where when you level up, you have access to both cards. So when you hit level 2, you have both your level 2 cards, but you can only ever make a legal deck by bringing one of them on any given scenario. But you have access to everything. And look, I get it. The main sort of arguments is, you never, if you are stuck with one, you never get to fully flesh out, a certain build. Deck building is, half the fun, and we really want to have all our options, etc. And this is a fairly common one. People don't like being completely stuck to a certain build. They like the flexibility of being able to change it up depending on the scenario.
Yeah, it sounds fun. Like, I get it. It's, I think it's fine.
Yeah, okay. I think it's fine.
If you, Mark, and Phil all said, "Hey, we really want to do this thing because we want to have more flexibility," I'd be like, "Yeah, that's fine."
No.
Well, I mean, you've just told me that you wanted to, so you can't say no.
No, I
In
didn't.
this scenario, this hypothetical scenario, you've already said that you want to do it. You can't. If you go, "Oh, we really want to do this," and I go, "Okay, sure," you go, "No."
No.
Like, well, what are you, a child? Like,
no. I think. Yes, it sucks when you pick a card and you can't go back and do all that kind of stuff. It's your game, you do whatever you want. I like the hard ruling in a way where, it makes it harder. It makes it into more, it's already a puzzle RPG where you're trying to, make the best. I like the idea of the whole MacGyver idea that we had in Dota 2 with, Mystery Draft or whatever it was called, when you have the abilities. I like it that, because essentially you could look at your card and go, well, here's a card with massive AoE. Right? Massive AoE, does a fair bit of damage, lost card, etc. And then here's another one with a really strong Pierce. Now, do I need Pierce on this one or do I need AoE on this one because we're dealing with a bunch of imps? And being able to do that kind of trivializes some of the scenarios, I think. It gives you way too much, thing. I like the idea of going in there and going, wow, but the other card I didn't pick would have been really good on here. But these are what I got, so how can I make them work? And there's a certain level of satisfaction I get out of that. I totally see why people are doing the other way. It makes perfect sense. I guess I'm just being a hard ass on myself, but I think that's how I have fun. Is trying
100%. I agree with you. I didn't say I wanted to do it. I said if you hypothetically came to me and said you wanted to do it.
If you really want to do it, I'll let it. But I don't think I want to do that, Gaz.
All right. Well, you're really confused in your hypothetical world. I think that you are confused with what you want. So. But yeah, I agree. I think the other thing it does though is it takes away the. I mean, maybe it's a feel bad anyway, but when you get to a level and then you realize both those cards aren't very good or that you don't like them, and you go back and get an earlier card, I feel like that's a decision you make and you get. I would say rewarded, but you're empowered by it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I chose this card because I really wanted this other really good card.
Yeah.
Now maybe it's just mitigating the fact that if you get to a level and both cards aren't very good, that's not a good thing. But yeah, I can see why that's pretty popular. I mean, I would say that instead of that, you just bring in a really easy respec house rule, right? I know that there's you spend gold equal to your level and you can change all your cards, right? I just feel like if you had a pay 10 gold, replace a card, like exchange a card for the other card you didn't choose.
Yeah,
I feel like
I think it's quite easy to come up with a variant that is not as like flexible, not like that kind of flexible, but where it actually does put a little bit more agency in the decision making.
Yeah, like actually making you save up for it and lose a little bit for doing it, but it's not ridiculous. Because the problem I have with the respec variant is that if you only want to change one card, you still got to pay 60, 70, 80 gold. Right? And you're like, well, that's dumb. Like, I don't think you should have to do that. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. I think the way we are, we treated Gloomhaven, the way we're treating this, we may come across as, I don't know, like stubborn with that kind of thing. It's just, that's actually legitimately the way we're having fun with the discovery. And that's why the game is so cool. When we first discover the puzzle book. I mean, look, unfortunately, we know that there's one in there because as I'm unpacking the game, there's a puzzle book. But when you get it, it's like this level of excitement that comes from all of us. When we unlock a new class, there's so much excitement. Or when we unbox something and see the cards for the first time, that level of discovery and then the hard decision of, what are we going to pick? That's what really gets me coming back to the game over and over again. And I think someone did mention, I'm too excited. So they unlocked, no, it didn't unlock, but they had a look and opened up all the characters and classes, and then worked out how to unlock them all in the game, so that they can then work towards how they wanted to play it. I totally see that, like with video games, that's how a lot of people will play these things. But I have this kind of weird old school mentality, and I think you do too, where it's kind of like, oh, even though we didn't play it to its full, efficiency in playing all the builds and all of that kind of stuff, our memory of Frosthaven is going to be unique to us.
Yeah.
Of how we got there and how we came to all these kind of things. And every single time something happens, it's always a really nice surprise and something to really look forward to.
I think the other part of it as well is that because I agree with all of that, and it is a unique experience, and we will know that we own that experience because we made those decisions. But the other thing is because the amount of time we're going to spend playing this.
Yes.
If this was a 2 or 3 month game, right? Like if we were, and I'm sure some people get through it in 2 or 3 months, but we are playing one scenario a week, so it's not going to be 2 or 3 months. If we were like, oh, this is probably about a 10 to 15 scenario game, I could completely see going like, it's fine if we know a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
Because it's less impactful. But I know we're going to be playing this in a year still, right? Or pretty close to. And I don't want that to have to speed up, but I also don't want to know what's coming.
No.
Like, right? Because if we find out anything, then it's just like another thing that we aren't going to get to experience. And then we're going to get to a point where, because we're eventually going to run out of things to experience.
Yeah.
Right. And
True.
I don't want that to be sooner if we're still going to be playing for a year.
I guess, yeah, there's a potential of burnout because you kind of know what's coming and all the excitement. Like, I'm probably going to hit level 6 next Monday. And that moment where I get to look at my level 6 cards and go, oh my God, we always have that moment at the table where we're sharing the cards. Go, oh my God, look what I can do. Look at this. Look at this. It's so hard because you want to know, but it makes it so much sweeter when you don't. And then when you get to it, like to actually see it like unfold in front of you is really cool. And I like that, we like I said, you can do it however you want to when it comes to looking into that kind of thing, but we don't want to spoil it for ourselves. I know you're like that. If Phil wanted to have a look at something, he's more than welcome to. He just doesn't know he's not to share that with us. And you and I get to share that excitement as we're going along with it.
Yeah.
Any
more?
All right. Yeah, 2 more, but they're cool ones, and I might do them. So I didn't quite understand it fully, but it was like when retiring, one must do something really special, like a custom song, or some kind of performance or something like that. And I think that's forced. I think you need to have some song playing, or you need to write a song or record a TikTok or something like that.
Okay. What, for in the moment or just to post somewhere post the retirement?
That's what I mean. I'm not too sure exactly how it works, but I'm very intrigued. If that person can let me know further how exactly they're doing it, that'd be great.
Okay.
And I think this is just well known, actually. If you cheat in Gloomhaven or Frosthaven, Isaac will know because your game is bugged, and he will fly his helicopter over to your place and break your knees.
That's not a variant.
It might be.
Isn't that how it works?
Well, that's what I thought, but no one can confirm or deny it. But Isaac's helicopter is well known.
Funnily enough, I don't know if it came up in this or I think it was a conversation earlier. Did you see the conversation on the Discord about how everybody had basically, I say everybody, a large percentage of people had basically been playing Monster at Initiative, focusing, I think, is that it? One way. And the question came up because of the ice race, the one that changed between elites and normals. Yeah. And so the question got posted to Isaac, and then he went through it and explained it, and then realized that everyone has been playing the game differently than he
intended it.
Yeah, so it's basically the way that it's written, and I think Dwarf was saying that it's still a little bit vague anyway in the rules, Gloomhaven and Frosthaven, is that the way that Isaac intended is that the targeting works based on the current board state, right? So what's actually gone,
right?
Not what the card says.
Okay.
So it's like if you open a room, right? They haven't had their turn yet, so they're not. So like that ordering.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas that the way that we play it is like it's whatever the card says.
Yeah. Okay.
So the player initiative or the monster initiative or whatever, I can't remember. I think it's maybe it was the player initiative. But anyway, the problem came up was because the thing switched from one to the other, and it's like, oh well, hang on, it was an elite, but now it's not. So does the game remember that it was an elite and then make you go after that one or something like that? So
No idea.
someone's going to probably correct me because I'm explaining it wrong. But I remember at the time it was basically like the conclusion came to like, all right, cool. Well, let's make it that way. Like,
Is that what he said?
yeah, basically, it's like,
nice.
well, that makes more sense.
That's
You have to
people
remember
power.
it. So, yeah, the power of the people. So, yeah, it was really it was really interesting conversation to read, and it's funny seeing there was a couple of people being like, "Oh, no, I've been playing it the other way, the way that Isaac did," and it's like, "Oh, that's really interesting because it's just like not wrong at all. Like in actual fact, I think it's more right, but it's just interesting seeing people interpret that slightly differently." So,
And all, like, everyone's doing it.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So.
Well, I actually think we better wrap it up there. This is probably our longest one.
Oh no!
So apologies for that, but it was a lot of fun. Again, to like house rules and all that kind of stuff, like I guess keep them coming. Like I really look forward to reading them because they're a lot of fun, and it just means that everyone's got their own little world, and like we're talking about, our unique experience. Everyone's got theirs, and let's all share. But yes, we'll wrap it up there. If you'd like to contact us, you can email me, contact@rollingterribly.com. I love reading them. I love sharing them with Gaz, except for when I don't, and then I read them live in front of him, so he doesn't. I get a raw response. I do like that. We can be found on Instagram at am_dirt. We have threads, remember? So I've been writing bits and pieces there. I'm not really sure what I'm doing, but I'm having fun with it. Twitter, amDirt, and youtube.com/amDirt. So thank you again for joining us on this slightly longer than I anticipated episode. I have been your host, Teddy. I've been joined again by my very, very wonderful good friend, Gaz.
Don't make it seem so forced. It sounds like if we didn't have video on you, I think someone had a gun to your head. Remember, when it comes to rolling terribly, it's all in the